Hi, my name is Mark Garton. I'm the sheriff of Polk County. And the reason we're here today is to talk about the Public Safety Levy that's up for renewal in May. Back in 2015, the levy was first put on the ballot and it passed. And it provided this. It provided more deputies on patrol so we can get 24/7 patrols because we were only working 10 hours a day. It allowed for 5 jail staff, 3 prosecutors, 2 legal support staff, and then 2 juvenile detention beds. So really what this is about the system. It's not necessarily about one thing or the other. Since we were only working 10 hours a day, noon to 10, that's what we worked. And there's a lot of things that went undone. We were very reactive, we weren't very proactive. And so we really had a couple tragic events that happened, and that's why this levy got put forth in 2015. And so it passed. We've hired all these people. That's what this levy provides, except for just for the 2 juvenile detention beds. Everything else is people. So we're full staffed on patrol in the jail and in the DA's office as well. So this is the first question most people ask: how much does it cost? The maximum cap that is allowed is 45 cents per thousand. On average, though, only 33 cents has been assessed each year. So we could have, I guess, taxed more and spent more, but we chose to do what we needed to do the job that we were told to do. So even though the cap is 33 cents is what was assessed each year on average. I think the highest at the highest point was 37.8 cents or something like that. So we've done pretty good in terms of managing our money. These are basically the promises that were made in the levy campaign in 2015. Was, we wanted to restore patrols, which we've done, restore POINT, which is the Polk County Interagency Narcotics Team. That's a multi-agency drug team that there's a detective from each police agency that's on this team. And they work out of the sheriff's office and we supervise them. So that's up and going. The DA's office, they were working with about 3 prosecutors in 2015. So I've heard the DA say that they were on par, basically on average, it's the same size as Tillamook County, even though they're about 1/3 of our size and population. So that's what we were working with in 2015. Now we're up to where we need to be to handle the amount of cases. We had little to no court security before 2015, but this has allowed us to hire those folks to get those going. And then supporting the city agencies, every single day we're helping probably nearly every agency in the county on calls, because not one of us can do the calls by ourselves. So we all have to work together. In the DA's office, essentially what this levy allows them to do, it allows them to prosecute about 800 more cases a year on average is what it's been. And so they just have really the bandwidth to handle more things, included in the prosecution. Their bread and butter is what the District Attorney Felton always says is DUIs. They have a bunch of them. They're in the 400 range per year for convictions, for processing and prosecution of those. And it's just a huge increase from what it's been, because they have the ability now with the staff to participate in mental health court and drug court. A mental health court is basically a court that is designed for folks that have mental illnesses that are causing necessarily problems on the outside. Instead of going to jail and go through regular court, they're sentenced to this court. And this court allows them weekly check-ins with mental health professionals to make sure they're taking their medications or doing whatever else is required of them, instead of the traditional court process. So it's they have just better outcomes with mental health court. Drug court's very similar. It's just in terms of the issues are drugs, and so there's a lot of treatment options that are ongoing in drug court, and it's a weekly thing, again, that everyone has to show up in court every week. It's much more scrutinized, and they have to toe the line, basically, much more than in just the traditional court system. They're also able to participate, and the Sheriff's Office participates as well in the sexual abuse response team, child abuse team, and the elder abuse team. And what those do it really has a multifaceted approach. So DHS workers, senior service workers, police, really anybody that's a stakeholder in those types of investigations come together and talk about these types of cases. and then figure out the best way to move forward, because sometimes law enforcement, we may not know the services that are available to a certain individual based on, if it's an elder abuse case or something like that. So we bring in the people that really know the services, and then we work together. So it's really just multidisciplinary teams. Those are things that are things that we wouldn't normally have, but we do, and we're able to do them because of the levy. So the simple question that people ask, so what? What is this levy really, what does it mean? Are we safer? And I can say, yes, we're safer. There's a lot of stats that we can throw out that'll say, because I can talk about stats all day long and it'll bore people, but these are kind of the top ones. So we are able to go out and be proactive. We're able to go out and arrest DUI drivers. We're able to go out, and when we arrest the DUI drivers, we're making them safer because we're taking them off the street. We're protecting the people that could have been in a crash. If we weren't out on the street doing that, then we weren't as safe. Now we are. We had 217 DUIs last year in 2018 that we arrested. It's not that the fact that the DUIs are increasing. They've always been there. It's just now we have the troops to be able to go out and find them and intercept them out on the road. So that's just one thing that I can say, yes, we're safer because of the levy with just the DUI enforcement. We handle about 24,000 calls a year. It's really on average over the last couple of years. And so that's a lot of calls, and we're going from call to call to call, and we're also doing traffic stops. We're also doing all these other things, and we stop about 6,000 cars a year, plus or minus, and about a third of them end up with citations. So there's always those people that assume that we have a quota or something like that, which we don't, but really just about a third get citations. So we are being out and being proactive on our traffic enforcement. Because of that, our crashes are down 56% from 2015. So that's a huge decrease in crashes. 2015, we had about 700 and some crashes, and now we're down into the 300s. So just because we're out and about doing those things, we're able to make it a direct impact. Think about it like insurance rates, just our safety overall are just from the result of us doing traffic enforcement. We also have a school resource deputy, started in 2016. We hadn't had one ever prior to that, but it's also important because we do prevention programs in all the schools that we represent. And we just interact and just really interact with the kids in positive, reinforcing ways. So it's something that I'm proud of having this ability, and the school districts I know are also very happy to have this program. We have a mobile crisis response team. This is a grant-funded position. It hires 4 people. It hires 2 police officers, 2 mental health professionals. So one of the teams is a deputy and a mental health clinician, and the other one is a Salem police officer and a mental health clinician. They only work Polk County, so 7 days a week we have coverage. And what they do is they respond to a call where there's a person in crisis right then. So they can start delivering services when that person is having an issue, not saying, hey, you're going to jail just to get rid of the problem, or hey, go check in with this person next week, and they may or may not show up. But at this point, we can start delivering those services and make those connections. And so you'll see these are calls that we go to inside or outside the city limits. There's no boundaries that we do except for Polk County. So Salem Police is oftentimes in Independence or Monmouth, even Falls City. It just depends if they're on and we're not. So this is a great program. It started in 2016. The whole idea is to reduce the number of mentally ill people that go to jail, because jail isn't necessarily the best place for them. We don't have the necessary treatment. We have some, but we just don't have the full deal that they would need. So if we can keep them on the outside, it's actually cheaper in the long run to keep them on the outside. Our interagency drug team, since they started back in July of 2016, so just a little under 3 years, over 11 pounds of meth and heroin, 200 arrests and convictions, and 180 major drug dealing cases. So these are focusing on drug dealers, not possessors, people that are trafficking meth and heroin from outside the area, bringing it here. So we work to stop that, and they unfortunately are very busy, but also a good thing, and they're good at what they're doing. So that's directly a result of the levy. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do it. I talked about this. Just the prosecution is able to prosecute a lot more calls. So the public safety system. So all the police departments or the sheriff's office, we arrest somebody. They go to our jail, the Polk County Jail. The police departments drop them off. Their hands are clean of that person. Now that person becomes my responsibility. We have to feed, medical care. We pay for them. That's part of our budget. We then, the sheriff's office gets them to court. Depending on how they're sentenced, they might be sentenced to our jail for up to a year, or they'll go to prison. We'll take them to prison. And then the DA's office is the one that prosecutes for most of the cities, unless, like Independence has a small muni court, so does Monmouth, but they only handle small cases. So the DA's office, that's part of this levy, prosecutes all the cases from all the city agencies, including Salem. And it is really a system, because if there's no prosecutors, it doesn't do really any good for people to be arrested and taken to jail if there's no people to be able to prosecute. So that's just kind of the general process. And I've had a lot of people ask, I live in the city, so why do I need this? And so if I try to explain the system, they'll understand too. And when the person gets released from jail after their sentence, they're on probation out of Polk County. So, but then they come back and live in the city, but they're still responsible for the PO that works for the county. So it is a system. So here's the facts on the new proposed levy that's up for on the May 21st ballot. We are reducing the cap to 42.5 cents, so it's down 2.5 cents, no reduction in services. It'll be a 5-year levy, and there's really no change. There actually is an addition, so I would be able to get a new position in the first year of the levy. Because of our call load is so high and continuing to stay high, we need to keep up with that. If we don't, then we'll fall behind. So it does allow for a person in year 1, and then I can ask for a person in year 3 if need be. And then, so if you do the math, the levy was passed in 2015, and it was a 5-year levy. So it's 2019, so it's only 4 years. So why renew early? The reason is it costs about $150,000 to train a deputy in the first year. So we've hired 12 on patrol, 5 in the jail. And as you do the math, that's a lot of our money, our taxpayer money that we've invested in these folks. Some of them have moved here, some already live here, but we want to protect that investment. If we wait up until the very last minute, next May, basically, if we waited till next May, we could have people leave. And I don't want to necessarily see people walk out the door with our training that we've invested in them to another agency who doesn't have to do that. And then we would start over with a new person and have to pay all this money again. So we really want to make sure that our folks know that their job is secure for another 5 years. And that's really the main point, to go out a year early. The 5th year of the first levy would cease to exist, and this new one would take its place, so there wouldn't be any overlapping or double taxing, anything like that. And so the first year, or the first levy, would just be a 4-year levy essentially, and this would take over. We've talked about, is it safe and has it worked? And yes, it's worked. I mean, there's proof in every stat that I can give you that shows that we're out there doing the job that we were asked to do. The promises that we made in 2015, we've kept all of them. We moved very swiftly to hire all the people. We've hired in this levy was 22 people. And so the sheriff's office, we ended up hiring more than that, because before our levy passed in 2015, we had bunches of people leave. They left because they were uncertain of the levy. And so we ended up having to hire about 35 people between the jail and patrol, even though only 17 of them were from the levy. So we had a bunch of people leave. And so I fully understand the consequences for waiting until the last minute, because it was bad in terms of, that's a lot of people to hire, a lot of, especially cops that require certain trainings and backgrounds and all that. So has it worked? Absolutely. I can talk a lot in terms of specific things just to show proof, but we are able to prosecute, we're able to intercept crime, we're able to house the inmates, and we're able to supervise them when they get out. We have a website. It's keeppolksafe.com. And there's a flyer that you guys can download that's on the website, same flyer. There's a lot of other things you can download as well. It has more information. It has the list of all the endorsers. It has stats and previous things that have worked well. And so just really, and the reason why we're in this position, and I've had some people ask that too, why do we need the levy to begin with? For decades really. the Polk County had received about $2 to $2.5 million a year from the federal government. So for O&C timber funds, basically that the federal government paid us to not harvest timber, essentially. That money stopped, and so we were in a position where we were $2.5 million short, and this levy makes up for that. So we artificially kept our tax base low because we received all this federal money, and we never increased our tax base as much as we can, because you can only increase it like 3% per year. So there's a limit on what we can't just sky high jump and take care of it. So the levy is the thing that gets us by to be able to do public safety, which is what we need to do, and that's what people deserve. So there's a message button on our website as well. If you want to have questions, you can email that. There's a phone number you can call as well. Somebody will answer and somebody will respond to an email. Or if you can't figure out the question that's on the website. So it has most everything you're going to need. You guys have any questions? The grant funded position we have, would it be affected if the levy passes or fails? The answer is likely, because our core function is patrol. So if our patrol deputies aren't out on the road, I'm not going to have a grant funded position that is a specialty thing that can't go respond to calls. We would really have to sit down and look at the options that we have, but most likely that would go away, and that person would come back to our patrol division to handle our bread and butter of what we do every day. It would be unfortunate, but yeah, that's probably the answer. So why do we need a levy, and basically why do we have to renew it every 5 years? And the answer is yes. So levies only work, the max you can do is 5 years. The only other option, well, the options are the levy, to do nothing, or to look at a tax district, which is like similar to a fire district funding model. It takes a lot more. It's not something that would happen overnight by any means. It would take a couple years to get that. That's the only other option, and that would be a permanent tax rate increase. Essentially what the levy is doing, it just would be a tax base, just like a fire district. And our Facebook page too, Friends of Polk County Public Safety is our Facebook page. If you message on there, there's myself and one other person that responds to those, so feel free to ask questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them, either by text, email, phone call, in person, whatever you need. So thanks for your time.